No assistant survived the CEO's temper, until a fearless girl walked in. Hello everyone. Before we begin today's story, I have a small favor to ask. Please hit subscribe and turn on the notification bell so you never miss our channel's new videos. It is quick, free, and the best way to support us in bringing you more dramatic and emotional stories like this one. Your support truly means the world to us. Now tell me, where are you watching from today? Drop your city or country in the comments below. Thank you very much. Now, let us begin, and let us go back to our main character. In the heart of downtown Chicago, on the 42nd floor of a glass tower overlooking Lake Michigan, there was one office no one wanted to step into anymore. Not because of the height, not because of the pressure, but because of the man behind the desk. His name was Ethan Caldwell. He was the founder and chief executive officer of Caldwell Dynamics, a billion-dollar medical technology company. Brilliant, precise, relentless, and infamous for one thing above all else: his temper. Assistants came and went like seasons. One lasted 3 weeks. Another barely made it past orientation. The longest had survived 28 days before leaving the building in tears, her resignation letter trembling in her hands. People whispered about him in elevators. He does not yell, he cuts. He remembers every mistake. He does not forgive. Inside his office, the air was always cold, even in summer. Floor-to-ceiling windows framed the city like a distant world he no longer belonged to. Medical reports were stacked neatly on one side of his desk, financial projections on the other. Everything in perfect order, everything except him. Ethan Caldwell did not sleep well. He did not eat on schedule. And some mornings, when the pain flared behind his ribs like a slow-burning fire, he could barely breathe without gripping the edge of his desk. But no one was supposed to know that. All they saw was a powerful man with sharp eyes and a sharper voice. A man who demanded excellence, because anything less felt like losing control. And losing control was the one thing he could not survive again. On a rainy Monday morning, Human Resources posted the position one more time. Executive assistant to the CEO. High turnover, high pressure, immediate start. Most people scrolled past it, but not her. Her name was Clare Morgan. She stood outside the office now, a thin folder tucked under her arm, listening to the muffled sound of a voice inside. Low, controlled, dangerous in its calm. The previous assistant walked out just moments earlier, face pale, eyes glassy, avoiding everyone's gaze. Claire noticed. She always noticed. The receptionist looked up at her, hesitation written all over her face. "You can still change your mind," she said quietly. "No one would blame you." Claire offered a small, steady smile, not nervous, not forced. "I am sure," she replied. When the door opened, the first thing Ethan Caldwell saw was not fear. It was resolve. She met his eyes without flinching, and for the first time in a very long time, something in him paused. Not softened, not healed, just paused. Because this girl did not look like she was here to survive him. She looked like she was here to stay, and that terrified him more than any resignation letter ever had. Clare Morgan learned very quickly why no one stayed. By 9:30 that morning, she had already been corrected 6 times, not shouted at, not insulted. Worse, Ethan Caldwell corrected her with precision, as if every word she spoke was a miscalculation he could not tolerate. "The file is misaligned," he said without looking up. "It is aligned," Claire replied calmly. "It is not aligned the way I prefer." She nodded once. Understood. Most assistants would have bristled, some would have apologized too much. Claire simply fixed it and placed the folder back on his desk, her movements steady, unhurried. Ethan noticed that too. He did not comment on it, but something in her lack of reaction unsettled him. People usually shrank under his scrutiny, or they overcompensated. Claire did neither. The day continued like that. Emails, calls, meetings stacked back to back. Ethan moved through them like a machine, his posture rigid, his jaw clenched tighter with every passing hour. By early afternoon, the color had drained from his face, though he seemed determined to ignore it. Claire did not. At 1:15, she placed a glass of water on the corner of his desk. "You missed lunch," she said. "I do not need lunch," Ethan replied. "You need water," she said, just as evenly. "Your voice sounds strained." He looked up then, really looked at her. "You are not my doctor." "No," Claire agreed, "but I am your assistant, and this is my job." He said nothing. But when she turned to leave, the glass was empty moments later. That was when Ethan realized something dangerous. She was observant, and she was not afraid of him. Claire had grown up in quiet hospital hallways. Her mother had spent years in and out of treatment rooms, battling an illness that never announced itself loudly, but lingered patiently, demanding care and endurance. Claire learned early that pain did not always look dramatic. Sometimes it looked like irritability, like control, like exhaustion disguised as authority. So when Ethan winced ever so slightly as he stood from his chair, she noticed. When his hand hovered at his side a second too long, she noticed that too. At 3:45, he snapped. A supplier call went poorly. Numbers did not align. Deadlines shifted. The room seemed to close in on him, and the familiar pressure built in his chest, sharp and relentless. "Get out," he said suddenly. The room froze. The silence was thick enough to feel. Claire stood where she was. "Which part?" "All of it," he said, his voice low, dangerous. "Everyone, now." The conference room cleared in seconds, everyone except her. She waited until the door shut. "You should leave," Ethan said, turning away, gripping the edge of the table. "I will," Claire replied. "In 1 minute." He scoffed. That was not a suggestion. "I know," she said softly. "You are in pain." That did it. He turned on her then, anger flaring sharp and fast. "You do not get to analyze me," he said. "You do not know anything about me." Claire met his gaze. She did not raise her voice. She did not step back. "I know you are pushing yourself too hard," she said. "And I know you think if you stop, something will fall apart." Ethan felt his breath hitch, just once, enough to betray him. For a moment, neither of them spoke. Then he said it, cold and final. "You will not last." Claire nodded slowly. "Maybe," she said, "but I am here today." She turned and walked out, leaving the room quieter than before. Ethan stood alone, chest rising and falling unevenly, staring at the door she had just closed. No one had ever spoken to him like that, and no one had ever stayed calm when he tried to push them away. For the first time in months, the pain in his chest was not the only thing he could feel. There was something else now, something unfamiliar, something dangerously close to hope. The next morning, Claire Morgan arrived 10 minutes early, not because she wanted to impress anyone. She simply liked to know where everything was before the day began. She reviewed the schedule, adjusted the meeting order, and quietly replaced the harsh overhead lighting in Ethan Caldwell's office with a warmer setting he had never bothered to change. At exactly 8 o'clock, he walked in. His suit was immaculate. His expression was not. He stopped when he noticed the lights, just for a fraction of a second. "Change it back," he said. Claire looked up from her tablet. "It reduces eye strain. I did not ask for your opinion." "No," she said, "you did not." She did not move. Ethan stared at her, waiting for the familiar reaction. The flustered apology, the hurried obedience. It never came. Instead, she handed him a neatly organized folder. "Your first meeting was moved up by 15 minutes. The client requested it. I already confirmed." He took the folder. Their fingers did not touch. "Next time," he said coldly, "you will wait for approval." "I will," Claire replied, "if there is time." He opened his mouth to argue. Then he stopped, because she was right. There rarely was. The day unfolded with a strange, uncomfortable rhythm. Claire anticipated his needs before he voiced them. She rerouted calls when his patience thinned. She shortened meetings when his breathing grew shallow, always with a neutral explanation that offended no one. Ethan noticed all of it. He hated that he noticed. At 11:20, pain struck without warning. It was not sharp enough to knock him down. It never was. It was worse. A slow, grinding pressure beneath his ribs, spreading outward, stealing his breath in small, humiliating increments. He tightened his grip on his pen and forced his signature onto the document in front of him. Claire saw his hand shake. She said nothing. She simply stepped closer and lowered her voice. "You have 5 minutes before the board call," she said. "I can delay it." "I do not need delay," Ethan snapped. "You need to breathe," she replied. That was when he stood up too fast. The room tilted, just slightly, enough to betray him. Ethan reached for the desk, his jaw clenched hard enough to ache. The world narrowed, noise fading to a dull roar in his ears. Claire was there instantly. She did not touch him. Not yet. "Sit," she said, calm but firm. "I said I am fine." "You are not," she said. "Sit down." Something in her tone cut through the fog. Not authority, not fear. Certainty. Ethan lowered himself into the chair, his pride screaming louder than the pain. Claire poured water and placed it in his hand. "Slow," she said. "In through your nose, out through your mouth." He wanted to tell her to stop. He wanted to remind her who he was. But his body did not care about titles. After a long moment, the pressure eased. Just enough. Ethan stared at the floor, breathing carefully, controlled. When he finally looked up, he expected pity. He found none. Claire had stepped back, giving him space, already adjusting the schedule on her tablet. "I moved the board call to tomorrow," she said. "You were not ready. That was not your decision." "No," she agreed, "but it was the right one." Silence stretched between them. "Why are you doing this?" Ethan asked quietly. Claire paused. Then she answered honestly. "Because someone once did it for me," she said, "when I could not." He did not ask her to explain. Something told him that if she did, the fragile balance would break. That afternoon, rumors spread quickly. The new assistant had not quit. The new assistant had postponed a board call. The new assistant had told Ethan Caldwell to sit down. No one believed it. Ethan closed his office door later than usual that evening. The pain was still there, dull and persistent. But for the first time in a long while, it was not accompanied by the familiar sense of isolation. He sat alone in the quiet, thinking about the way she had spoken to him, not as a problem, not as a threat, but as a person in pain. And that realization unsettled him far more than anger ever had, because anger was armor, and she was learning how to see past it. By the end of the first week, the office had changed. Not in any obvious way. The walls were the same, the schedules were still brutal, the pressure had not eased. But there was a rhythm now, a quiet pattern that began to form around Ethan Caldwell's days, one he did not acknowledge but unconsciously followed. Claire created it without announcement. Every morning a glass of water waited on his desk before he arrived. Not ice cold, not warm, exactly the temperature that did not shock his system. His calendar no longer ran endlessly. Meetings were grouped, then spaced, then trimmed by minutes that added up to breathing room he pretended not to need. At 10:30 each day, she placed a small cup beside his keyboard. Tea, always the same. No comment, no insistence. The first time, he ignored it. The second time, he pushed it aside. The third time, he drank it without realizing. That unsettled him. Ethan had built his life on control. He controlled markets, he controlled negotiations, he controlled people. But these small, quiet adjustments were slipping past his defenses without resistance. They were not demands, they were not challenges, they were care. And care was dangerous. "Stop doing that," he said one afternoon, noticing the tea again. "Doing what?" Claire asked. "Anticipating me." She looked at him calmly. "That is my job." "No," he said, "it is not." She paused, choosing her words carefully. "Then consider it professional courtesy." He scoffed, turning back to his screen, but he did not push the cup away. The pain came and went that week, unpredictable but familiar. Some days it lingered quietly in the background. Other days it flared without warning, stealing his breath and his patience in equal measure. Claire never commented on his temper. When he snapped, she did not flinch. When he dismissed her sharply, she did not withdraw. She responded the same way every time. Calm, present, unmoved. It infuriated him. It also grounded him. On Friday evening, the building emptied early. A storm rolled in from the lake, rain streaking down the glass windows in heavy lines. Ethan remained in his office long after the lights dimmed, staring at a report he could not focus on. The pain had returned, stronger this time. He loosened his tie, his breathing shallow, controlled. He would ride it out. He always did. A knock sounded softly at the door. "You should be gone," he said without looking up. "I will be," Claire replied. "In a moment." She stepped inside, setting her bag down. Without asking, she adjusted the lights again, dimming them slightly. The harsh glare softened. "I did not approve overtime," Ethan said. "I am not working," she said. "I am checking on you. I do not need checking." Claire studied him for a moment, the tightness in his shoulders, the way his fingers pressed into the desk. "You are in pain," she said gently. Silence. "Do not say that," he replied. "Why?" she asked. "Because it makes it real?" His jaw tightened. "No one stays when it gets real," he said flatly. Claire did not answer right away. She walked to the window, watching the rain for a moment. "I do," she said finally. "I stay." He laughed then, a short, humorless sound. "You say that now." She turned back to him. "I am still here." Something in his chest twisted. Not pain this time, something deeper. "You should leave," he said again, quieter now. "In 5 minutes," she replied. "Breathe first." He hated that she was right. He hated that he listened. As the storm raged outside, Ethan Caldwell sat in his chair, breathing slowly, while Clare Morgan stood nearby, not fixing him, not pushing him, not demanding anything at all, just staying. And for the first time since the accident he never spoke about, Ethan wondered what it would mean to let someone stay without forcing them away first. The following week tested everything Clare Morgan had built. The routine remained. The water, the tea, the carefully spaced meetings. But something in Ethan Caldwell had shifted, and not in a gentle way. As the pain episodes became more frequent, his patience thinned. The closer she got, the harder he pushed back. On Monday morning, he canceled 3 meetings she had carefully rearranged. On Tuesday, he rejected a report she knew was flawless. By Wednesday, his voice had returned to its sharpest edge. "You are overstepping," he said, standing behind his desk, arms crossed tightly over his chest. Claire did not raise her head from her notes. "I am doing my job." "No," Ethan snapped. "You are managing me." She looked up then, calm, steady. "I am supporting you." "I did not ask for support." "No," she said quietly. "You did not." The words hung between them. Ethan turned away, jaw clenched. He had spent his entire life proving that he did not need anyone. Every achievement, every promotion, every ruthless decision had reinforced that belief. Dependence had cost him once. He would not let it happen again. "You should find another position," he said abruptly. "This one is not suitable for you." Claire froze, not because she was afraid, but because she heard the truth beneath his words. "You are trying to make me leave," she said. "I am giving you an option." She closed her folder slowly. "Why now?" Ethan did not answer. The pain flared hard that afternoon. It hit him during a financial review, sharp enough to steal the color from his face. He stood too quickly, chair scraping loudly against the floor, the room spinning just enough to make him curse under his breath. Claire was already there. "I told you not to interfere," he said through clenched teeth. "And I told you I would not leave you alone with this," she replied. He laughed bitterly. "You do not understand what you are getting into." "Then explain it to me," she said. That was the moment he lost control. "Everyone leaves," Ethan said, his voice rising. "They always do. When it gets inconvenient. When it gets messy. When I stop being worth the effort." The room went silent. Claire did not interrupt him. "You think you are different," he continued. "You think kindness fixes everything. It does not. It just delays the inevitable." She took a step closer, not invading his space, just enough to be present. "I am not here to fix you," she said gently. "I am here to work, and to stay, if you let me." Ethan shook his head sharply. "You will regret it." "Maybe," Claire said, "but that will be my decision." The words struck something raw inside him. Decisions had always been his domain. Control had always been his shield, and yet here she was, refusing to be managed, refusing to be scared away, refusing to leave on his terms. "Get out," he said suddenly, louder this time, final. Claire did not argue. She nodded once, picked up her bag, and walked to the door. Her hand rested on the handle for a moment. "I will be back tomorrow," she said quietly, "if you want me." Then she left. Ethan stood alone in the empty office, chest tight, the familiar ache spreading beneath his ribs. But this time, it was not just physical. The silence pressed in on him, heavy and absolute. He had pushed her away, just like everyone else. And yet, for the first time, it did not feel like victory. It felt like loss. That night, Ethan Caldwell sat in the dark long after the building emptied, replaying her words over and over again. "I am not here to fix you. I am here to stay." He did not know which frightened him more, the pain that refused to leave, or the possibility that someone might actually stay if he stopped forcing them away. Clare Morgan returned the next morning. She did not know if Ethan Caldwell wanted her there. She did not know if security would stop her. She only knew that walking away had never been an option for her, not when someone was hurting this badly. The office was quieter than usual. Too quiet. The receptionist looked up as Clare stepped off the elevator. Concern etched across her face. "He has been in his office since dawn," she said. "He canceled everything." Clare nodded once and walked down the hall. Ethan's door was closed. She knocked. No answer. She knocked again, firmer this time. Still nothing. Her hand closed around the handle. Inside, the lights were dim. The city outside the windows looked distant, blurred by fog rolling in from the lake. Ethan was seated behind his desk, shoulders rigid, one hand gripping the edge so tightly his knuckles were white. "Ethan," Clare said softly. He did not look up. The pain had come early that morning, sharper than usual, unforgiving. He had tried to push through it like always, but his body had finally refused. "Go away," he said hoarsely. Clare stepped closer. She could hear it now, the uneven rhythm of his breathing, the tension radiating from him. "I told you I would be back," she said. "I am here." "I do not want you here," he snapped, though the strength behind the words was gone. "You need help," Clare replied. "I do not need anyone," he said, but the words faltered halfway through. Then it happened. Ethan stood up too fast, pain exploding through his chest, stealing the air from his lungs. His vision darkened at the edges, the room tilting violently. Clare was there instantly. She caught his arm, steadying him, guiding him back into the chair. This time she did not ask permission. "Sit," she said firmly. "You are not fine." "I said do not touch me," he protested weakly. "I will let go when you are safe," she replied. His breathing was shallow now, each inhale a struggle. His composure shattered, stripped away by pain he could no longer control. Clare knelt in front of him, keeping her voice calm and even. "Look at me," she said. "Follow my breathing. In slowly, out slowly." He tried, failed, tried again. Minutes stretched painfully long. Finally, the worst of it passed, leaving him drained, exposed, and shaking with exhaustion. Clare stayed where she was, giving him space, not looking at him with pity or fear. When he spoke again, his voice was barely audible. "I hate this," he admitted. Clare did not rush him. "I hate that I cannot stop it," he continued. "I hate that it makes me weak." She looked up at him then. "It does not make you weak," she said. "It makes you human." Something inside Ethan broke at that. He let his head fall back against the chair, eyes closed, breathing uneven. "I almost died once," he said quietly, "on the operating table. The doctor said I was lucky, that I survived." Clare listened. "They fixed my heart," he went on, "but they could not give me my life back. I woke up alone, and everyone expected me to be grateful." His hand tightened into a fist. "I learned very quickly that if I stayed in control, no one could hurt me again." Clare stood slowly, her movements gentle. "And now control is hurting you," she said. Silence filled the room. After a long moment, Ethan opened his eyes and looked at her. "Why are you still here?" he asked. Not angrily, not defensively, just honestly. Clare met his gaze. "Because leaving never helped anyone I loved," she said. The words landed softly, but their weight was immense. Ethan swallowed hard. For the first time since the accident, he did not push the pain away. He did not mask it with anger or authority. He let her see him. And that, more than the pain itself, terrified him. But Clare did not move away. She stayed. And in that quiet, vulnerable moment, something shifted between them. Not romance, not comfort, trust. Fragile, uncertain, but real. After that morning, Ethan Caldwell stopped pretending nothing had changed. He did not apologize. He did not thank her. He did not suddenly become kind. But he stopped fighting her presence. That alone was a shift. The days that followed were quieter, not easier but steadier. Ethan allowed Clare to sit in on meetings without questioning her role. He accepted the adjusted schedules without comment. When the pain surfaced, he no longer lashed out immediately. Sometimes, he simply closed his eyes and waited for it to pass. Clare stayed consistent. She did not hover. She did not lecture. She did not turn his vulnerability into a lesson. She treated him the same way every day, regardless of whether he was sharp or silent. One afternoon she found him standing by the window, staring out at the lake. His reflection in the glass looked older than his years, tired in a way success could not disguise. "You canceled the investor dinner," she said gently. "Yes," he replied. "They will survive." She hesitated. "You usually do not cancel." "I am tired of performing," he said flatly. The honesty caught her off guard. For a long moment, neither of them spoke. Then, unexpectedly, Ethan broke the silence. "There was a nurse," he said. Claire turned toward him slowly. "She stayed with me the night after the surgery," he continued, his voice distant. "Everyone else had gone home. My family, my board, my lawyers." He exhaled slowly. "She did not talk much. She just checked the monitors and told me to breathe when the panic came." Claire listened without interrupting. "When I woke up in pain, I grabbed her wrist," he said. "I did not even realize I did it." His jaw tightened. She did not pull away. Something about that memory made his chest ache in a way pain never could. She said, "I am here. You are not alone." He paused. "I never saw her again." Claire swallowed. "And after that?" she asked quietly. "After that," Ethan said, "I decided never to need anyone again." The truth sat heavy between them. Claire stepped closer, her voice calm. "Needing someone does not make you weak." He shook his head. "It makes you vulnerable." "Yes," she agreed. "It does." He turned to face her fully then, searching her expression. "And you are not afraid of that?" "I am," Claire admitted. "I just do not let it decide for me." That night, Ethan did something he had not done in years. He left the office before midnight. At home, the silence felt different, not oppressive, just empty. He sat on the edge of his bed, the city lights glowing faintly through the curtains, and realized how much of his life had been built around avoiding moments like this. Stillness had always frightened him, because stillness made room for memories. The accident, the hospital ceiling, the cold certainty that he might not wake up, and the loneliness that followed. The next morning, Claire found a folded medical report on her desk. Not detailed, not technical, just enough. "I thought you should know," Ethan said, standing nearby, "in case it happens again." It was the closest thing to trust he had ever offered. Claire nodded. "Thank you." Later that day, during a tense board meeting, one of the executives pushed too far, questioning Ethan's leadership with thinly veiled concern. Before Ethan could respond, Claire spoke. "With respect," she said evenly, "Mr. Caldwell has already addressed this. The numbers reflect his decision, and they are strong." The room went silent. Ethan looked at her, surprised. She met his gaze, unflinching. For the first time, someone had stood beside him, not behind him, not beneath him, with him. After the meeting, he said quietly, "You did not have to do that." "I know," Claire replied. "I wanted to." Something settled in his chest then, not pain, relief. That evening, as the office lights dimmed, Ethan realized the truth he had been avoiding. Claire was no longer just helping him manage his days. She was slowly teaching him how to exist without armor, and that scared him more than any pain ever had. Because armor could be rebuilt, trust could not, and he was not sure he knew how to survive losing it again. The shift was subtle, but it changed everything. Ethan Caldwell no longer braced himself when Claire entered his office. He no longer watched her for signs of hesitation or escape. Instead, he began to notice the absence she would leave behind when she stepped out of the room. And that frightened him. For Claire, the change was just as real. The longer she stayed, the more she understood the cost of staying. The late nights, the emotional weight, the quiet responsibility of being the one person Ethan did not push away. She had never planned to remain forever. She reminded herself of that often. One afternoon, a letter arrived from the hospital across town, the same building where her mother still received treatment twice a week. A new opportunity, a permanent position, better hours, stability, everything she had once prayed for. Claire folded the letter carefully and placed it back into her bag. She did not mention it, but Ethan sensed the distance before she spoke a word. "You are distracted," he said one evening as they reviewed the following week's schedule. "I am fine," Claire replied. He watched her for a moment. "You lie badly." She almost smiled. The truth surfaced a few days later during a company event. A public setting, bright lights, too many eyes. Ethan stood at the center of the room, composed, authoritative, answering questions with his usual precision. One executive leaned in too close. "We hear you have become dependent," he said lightly, "on your assistant." The word cut sharper than intended. Ethan did not respond immediately. Before Claire could stop herself, she spoke. "He is not dependent," she said calmly. "He is human." The room fell quiet. Ethan turned toward her slowly, surprise flickering across his face. Not anger, something softer. Afterward, in the elevator, neither of them spoke. When they reached his floor, Claire finally broke the silence. "I received an offer," she said. Ethan's chest tightened. And I accepted it," she continued. "It starts in 2 weeks." The doors opened. Ethan did not move. "I see," he said quietly. Claire nodded. "I was always meant to leave." He believed her, but understanding did not make it hurt less. The final days passed too quickly. Claire organized everything meticulously. Notes, instructions, contingencies. She made it easy for the next assistant to step in. Too easy. On her last evening, Ethan remained in his office long after she finished packing her desk. "You did not have to make this so efficient," he said. She met his gaze. "That is how I know how to care." He exhaled slowly. "You changed things here." "So did you," she replied. He hesitated, then spoke the truth he had been avoiding. "I am better when you are here." Claire felt the weight of that admission settle between them. "I know," she said softly, "but you are better because you learned how to be, not because of me." The pain flared that night, not physical this time. Loss had a different shape. As Claire stepped toward the door, Ethan stopped her. "Stay," he said. Not as a command, not as a request backed by power, as a plea. Claire turned back, eyes shining but steady. "If I stay because you need me," she said, "we will both lose." Silence stretched. Then she added, "But if you ask me to stay because you choose me, that is different." Ethan swallowed hard. For the first time, he understood the difference between control and choice, between fear and trust. Claire left that night, but she did not disappear. And Ethan Caldwell, standing alone in his office once more, realized something profound. Healing had never been about holding on. It had been about learning when to let go, and trusting that what mattered would return. 2 weeks passed. Ethan Caldwell did not replace Claire Morgan right away. He interviewed candidates, qualified ones, efficient ones, people with perfect resumes and polished answers. But something was always missing, not competence, presence. He realized then that Claire had never filled the role the way others did. She had reshaped it. The office settled into a new rhythm. Ethan kept the routine she had built. He drank water before meetings. He allowed space between calls. When the pain came, he did not punish the room for it. Sometimes he simply paused. The board noticed. So did the staff. The man who once terrified an entire floor now spoke less, listened more. Not because he was weaker, but because he no longer needed to be armored every second of the day. Healing did not erase the pain. It taught him how to live alongside it. On a quiet Sunday afternoon, Ethan stood on the balcony of his apartment, overlooking the city. The wind off Lake Michigan was cool, steady. He thought about the choice Claire had given him. Not need, choice. He picked up his phone. Claire was finishing a late shift at the hospital when she saw his name. She hesitated before answering. "Yes?" she said. "I am not calling to ask you to come back," Ethan said. His voice was calm, clear. "I am calling to ask if you would like dinner, as yourself, not as my assistant." There was a pause on the other end. "I would," Claire replied. They met at a small restaurant near the water. No suits, no schedules, no expectations. Just two people sitting across from each other, learning how to exist without roles. Ethan did not rush. He did not hide. He spoke honestly about the accident, about the fear, about the loneliness that came after success had already been achieved. Claire listened. She spoke about her mother, about the exhaustion of caregiving, about learning early that love often looked like staying, even when it was hard. Neither promised anything that night. They did not need to. Weeks later, Claire returned to the building, not to work, to visit. The staff noticed immediately, the way Ethan smiled when he saw her, not wide, not dramatic, but real. One evening, as the city lights flickered on below them, Ethan said the words that mattered most. "I am not healed," he said. "I know," Claire replied. "I will still have bad days. I expect that. I do not want you to stay because I am broken," he continued. "I want you to stay because we choose each other." Claire looked at him for a long moment. Then she nodded. "I choose you," she said. They did not rush into promises of forever. They built something quieter, stronger, days of care, nights of honesty, space for pain and room for joy. Months later, a new assistant settled easily into the role, because Ethan Caldwell no longer made people leave, and Claire Morgan never became his caretaker again. She became his partner, not because she healed him, but because together, they learned that healing was not about being fixed, it was about being seen, and choosing to stay.